Hello, one and all, specifically to Philadelphia Eagles fans. If you catch that reference, good for you. This is the SB Nation NFL show. More specifically, this is Monday Football Monday. A reminder that this show is brought to you by our friends at DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. If you are a fan of the NFL, then you will be a fan of us. Make sure to subscribe to the SB Nation NFL show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple devices, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. You can watch our show on the SB Nation NFL YouTube channel. And with the rest of your time, you can do whatever you want. This is Monday Football Monday, the new and improved version. I was actually absent from it last week. As always, the incomparable Rachel Prevet is keeping us alive behind the proverbial glass. My name is RJ Ochoa. And with me for the 2023 NFL season journey are the two best writers on the face of the earth, Mark Schofield and JP Acosta from SB Nation. Mark, neither of us are fans of the Philadelphia Eagles, but you wouldn't know it based on our first attempt at this whole thing.
No, you wouldn't know it. Eagles fans kind of recognize me, and obviously Rachel as well. You know, we did our QB Factory reboot show last season and past couple of seasons, which was a ton of fun. So go Birds, say it back. But pleasure to be here. Very excited about what we're to dive into today. Very excited about the fact that I'm wearing the Alpine hat. Shout out to Esty Bestie and Pierre Gasly. Hopefully they're enjoying their summer shutdown. But we're excited to talk some ball today.
That's right, JP. I think you are the maybe the Pierre Gasly in the relationship if Mark is Esteban Ocon. So, I mean, I hope that you take that as a compliment because that's how I intended it.
Yeah, I think it's a compliment. I think Pierre Gasly is kind of cool. But, yeah, I'm excited to be on again. I'm happy to be on with you guys. Got the Momo hat rocking today from one of the greatest cartoons of all time, Avatar: The Last Airbender. So we're excited to talk some ball.
So this is our second attempt at this week's episode of Monday Football Monday. It's Monday, August 7th, 2023. We were talking a moment ago about how the Hall of Fame game did just north of 6 million viewers, which is stupid compared to the fact that the average NBA playoff game did 5.47 million. But I don't want to talk about that anymore. Mark, on the subject of the Eagles, did you see Carson Wentz's most recent Instagram post?
I actually wrote about it. And
okay, I haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, JP gave me a fantastic headline for it. He basically said, Carson Wentz is Mad Lib's workout fit because it's incredible. He's got an Eagles helmet, a Commander's jersey, and a Colts pair of shorts on. And you could take this in a positive light. You could look at it the glass half full and say, hey, look, he's an experienced quarterback. He's played for a number of NFL teams. But it's also a reminder that 3 NFL teams look to him as the savior and the answer to their quarterback problems. And those 3 teams moved on very quickly. And in some stages, almost immediately in the case of the Indianapolis Colts. And so it's a very interesting way to go about trying to get a job. It may work for him. Maybe some, owner, position coach, somebody that's just bored decides, hey, he's still working out. Maybe we should give him a call. But it is a questionable fit. I do wonder what message it ultimately sends.
JP, as awkward as it is, I think it's the least possible or least awkward thing possible because it would be weirder if he did like the ensemble of one whole team, right? Like if he posted himself working out like in complete Eagles gear, complete Commanders gear, complete Colts gear, like, I sort of understand it. Like, we've all like, cut the yard in some weird clothes. Like that's Carson Wentz's version of this.
True, but you don't post to Instagram that you're cutting the yard in the goofy clothes. So my thing is like, if you got the matching set of one of each franchise, just wear the matching set. It's not that hard unless they're just dirty and you just haven't washed them in a while. I don't understand, man. Like Carson Wentz is a weird guy. I'm not gonna say like I don't like him. He's a weird guy, and I don't think that this is just a very weird ensemble fit. Just wear the matching set, man. It's not that hard. It really isn't. But you can also take it as like starting with the Eagles helmet when he was actually good and then just consistently getting worse. But I think there's some symbolism there.
I'm just glad that he didn't bust out the like jacket and fedora combo that he wore in a post-game press conference last year. Do you remember that? It was like the camo jacket, and we actually wrote about it, like the different things that he looked like, and he had this weird fedora on. It was just a very, very, very strange getup. I think JP's kind of nailed it. He's just a different kind of cat. Like Carson Wentz is different.
Once upon a time, there were a lot of people who believed that he was better than Dak Prescott. And as the resident Cowboys person around here, I'm obligated to remind everybody of that fact. Good times. Anyway, this is Monday Football Monday. We do have a football game in the rearview mirror. We have a lot right in front of us. This is the first official week of the preseason. Hard Knocks re-enters our lives tomorrow on Tuesday. Training camps are happening all over the NFL. What we're going to do today is, I don't know that we settled on a name for this, but it was like 10 thoughts, 10 takeaways, 10 questions. I think they all are questions, actually, but
10 questions could work.
Yeah, 10 questions about the current landscape of the NFL. Mark, why don't you shuffle through kind of, and kind of, spin the wheel and land on one, and offer us anyone you want, any question that's kind of percolating in your heart. It doesn't have to be one from the list, but just, let us into the mind of Mark Schofield.
Since you mentioned you're the resident Cowboys expert here, I want to start here. Will Kellen Moore truly lift the Chargers offense to the great beyond?
JP, I think you should go first because I'm a little biased. So
I have a lot of questions about Kellen Moore and how this fits in this entire Chargers offense. I feel like we talked about this with I talked about this with RJ a couple weeks ago. Whenever things went well for the Cowboys offense, it was Kellen Moore, and whenever things went bad for the Cowboys offense, it was Mike McCarthy. So I really do wonder, what is this offense going to look like? And at a very micro level, the offenses were kind of similar in terms of their issues between Joe Lombardi's Chargers offense and the Cowboys offense with Kellen Moore. They lacked explosiveness. It required the quarterback to make superhuman throws, which of course they can, but you don't want to have to make a superhuman throw every week. The only thing that set the two offenses apart was the Cowboys were just better in short yard situations. The Chargers were one of the worst teams in the NFL at running the ball or just even gaining yards in short yard situations. It's why they lost to the Jaguars in the playoffs. You're hoping that maybe Kellen Moore can coax a little bit more out of Justin Herbert in terms of, I don't think he is a safe quarterback. I think he's more I guess he's a risk-averse quarterback where he's going to try and get through 1 to 2 to 3 because of how quick he is as a processor and how accurate he is down there. It's just sometimes you can say, hey, I'm going to make this throw 30 yards downfield because I can. You're hoping that Kellen Moore can get that out of him, but there are still a lot of questions. I think the early returns from Chargers training camp they're doing a lot more play action, a lot more vertical passes downfield, which is something I'm excited to see when it comes to regular season, but I still do have a lot of questions.
I think it's fair to say that CeeDee Lamb is a better receiver than anybody Kellen Moore is currently coaching. Is that fair to say? Right? The Chargers don't have a receiver that's of CeeDee Lamb's caliber. Even if you disagree, maybe it's a push, maybe it's kind of close, whatever. CD is important because I saw this tweet from John Owning, who I believe we're all fans of. So he found this from Nate Jenke's fantasy profile on CeeDee Lamb. Hitch routes have made up 17.9% of his targets in his career, and none of his other routes are above 13%. As a Cowboys fan, that made me hate life. And that made me really just kind of hate everything. And I don't mean to do the scorned fan, the dude who left my team sucks and was always terrible thing, because I think very highly of Kellen Moore. But I do think there are limitations to what he does. I think he is sort of trying to be a citizen of everything and therefore a master of nothing. And I think that ultimately will inhibit Justin Herbert's ceiling or whatever you want to call it. I think they'll be better, but I mean, the bar to clear there isn't that high, Mark. I mean, I just don't know that I've definitely lost a little bit of steam in the Kellen Moore is a boy wonder who's here to save the football world sort of belief.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably a little bit more optimistic on this than the two of you. And I think part of it stems from the fact that there was such frustration. Anybody that studied the Chargers the past couple of years was just banging their head against the table because Joe Lombardi, obviously a school from the Sean Payton West Coast offensive philosophy, more of a horizontal-based offensive attack. Herbert was really asked a lot to attack underneath horizontally, get the ball out quickly. And you have a quarterback with his arm talent and athleticism and ability to create explosive plays downfield with his arm. It felt like they were holding him back a bit. And then you're looking at Kellen Moore and say whatever you want about how that offense panned out. And RJ, you know this offense better than anybody, but just average depth of target, the difference between Dak last year and Herbert last year and in years prior, it's almost an entire yard, if not more. And so I think you're going to see, as JP alluded to, more verticality in this offense. I think that's where they need to be. generate some explosive plays at the downfield passing game, lead into Herbert's strength, throwing the ball downfield, and the returns out of camp that's what they're doing. Like, they're pushing the ball downfield a lot more than we've seen in years past. Now, maybe it doesn't work, but the reason why I'm excited and more of a believer is because sitting down here every Monday after a Chargers game and seeing, stick flat or stick, Justin Herbert with his absolute arm talent throwing 5-yard outs left and right. It's like, let the kid play, let him go downfield. And I think we will see more of that. If it works, remains to be seen, but I'm optimistic that this is a better offense for him, at least on paper.
So I do wonder with Justin Herbert, I wonder how much of it was the offense and how much of it was kind of him. I feel like since he's been in the league, his average depth of target has gone down like a yard every year. And something that I've kind of noticed when watching the Chargers offense, especially last year, was he was starting to develop some scar tissue when it comes to getting hit all the time. And that's kind of a result of Rashawn Slater not being around and the offensive line just going through so much they went through so much upheaval along the offensive line last year. They were starting 7 different combinations of guys along the offensive line. So I think he starts to develop a little bit of scar tissue. And what I mean by that is he was getting the ball out so quickly because he did not want to get hit. He didn't want to get hit because he was playing with broken ribs for like a good majority of the season. And so I wonder, one, how will the offensive line being healthy kind of coax Justin Herbert back into throwing the ball downfield? And I also wonder how the receiving targets will help him kind of advance that, because they drafted Quentin Johnston, but I don't think, while Quentin Johnston is a good way to get more explosive, I don't think he is the explosive in terms of get downfield, like vertical threat. I think he's going to start off on kind of the Christian Watson diet of routes, where it is everything is along the XY axis. You're either running fast past people vertically, or you're running like jet sweeps or running across the field, because he doesn't really create much separation downfield. And he's also kind of iffy in terms of like body catching. So I wonder how the weapons that they have around Justin Herbert will kind of coax him out of this and kind of fix all the stuff that he's developed over the past year. We're like, yeah, he's really, really good at getting from 1 to 2 to 3. He is a robot quarterback. He knows what he's doing in those underneath areas. But with a guy, like Mark said, with a guy as talented as Justin Herbert, with an arm as good as Justin Herbert's, you don't have to say like, oh, let me get from 1 to 2 to 3 and find this check down. You can say, hey, if one is maybe like it's a 1% kind of throw, but it's 40 yards down the field, I can make that throw. And I just want to see him try it. Like, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the injury point is a big one because he had the fractured rib cartilage, which, not a doctor, I don't know how that happens, but wow, that sounds really painful. And he had the shoulder injury as well, which required surgery in the offseason. He just didn't want to get hit. And I can understand that. And I think with respect to the weapons, I think Joshua Palmer, the reports out of camp are pretty excited about him. He might be, him and Mike Williams, your 2 more downfield guys, with Allen and Johnston kind of your more underneath guys. So you've got explosive option up top, one of those guys underneath, and then let him create a little bit more instead of just, okay, now I'll check it down to Eckler and just get the ball out of my hands.
JP, you're one of the only people just now who I've ever heard offer the idea that maybe Justin Herbert is fallible, right? Like maybe something is Justin Herbert's fault. So it's interesting because you're right. Like Kellen Moore is this like recipient of good praise. Like which one of them will be the fall guy? Like between the two of them, it's definitely Kellen Moore. To be clear. But that's interesting. Okay, we have 9 more to get to. So the over under on us is probably like 7.5, and I think I would take the under at this point.
Yeah.
I think we might as well just stay local quickly because I don't know there's a lot here, but are the Rams already beginning to fall apart again? I once posited here on Monday Football Monday that nobody cared that the Rams won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Like did anybody like really feel passionately about that? Like like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I cared a lot, like in a negative way. Like it was very bothersome to me. You know what I mean? But like, did anybody like feel moved in any direction? No, like it was just, okay, that happened. Like it would have been such a more seismic thing for the NFL had the Bengals won that game. It's really my point. But like, so Cooper Kupp is hurt. The Rams already stink. They have like 4,000 rookies on their team. Like this just feels destined for something very, very terrible, Mark.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, Sean McVay's already talking about a big roster reset. And, he said that he entertained the idea of retirement, but now he's sort of all in on turning this around. You're seeing camp highlights of Stetson Bennett, which I think kind of speaks for itself when you talk about the state of the Rams right now. I mean, I don't know if it's beginning to fall apart, if it already has. And the roster reset is here. We expect them to have a bad season this year. So yeah, the Rams, they're in trouble. I'd be surprised if, they even get close to 500, given what the division they're in, who they're going to have to face, the plentitude of rookies that they're playing this year. It's going to be a struggle out there. I'm more curious to see if McVay sticks to his word and sticks around for this reset, or if he decides, in a couple of months from now, you know what, that nice job over at Fox or CBS or wherever sounds a little bit better than trying to rebuild this team around Stetson Bennett.
JP, the over-under for the Rams is 6.5, according to our friends at DraftKings. I mean, the under feels very, very appealing.
I'm hammering that under. This Rams team is probably not going to be good. It is. I think they started to fall apart as soon as they traded Jalen Ramsey. I mean, when you have a defense that currently at this point is filled with a bunch of rookies and young guys, and not only a bunch of rookies and young guys, there are only 3 guys on this roster or on this defensive roster that were picked on the first 2 days of the NFL draft. And that's including Aaron Donald, who is it was arguably the greatest defensive player of this generation. But outside of that, you're playing a bunch of young guys, a bunch of undrafted young guys who need more reps. In a perfect world, these guys are depth or special teams guys, and they don't have to start right away. But this defense absolutely needs them to play right away for them to be competitive. And then if you look at the offensive side of the ball, they're still going through some offensive line upheaval. Steve Avila is pretty much locked down the left guard spot, but they paid Joe Noteboom $40 million last year to lock down the left tackle spot, and he's rotating in and out with guys in the first team offense. It's not looking great for that offensive line right now. Brian Allen had a terrible season last year under center. That's really going to be the important thing. Can you keep Matt Stafford upright long enough? Because he was getting destroyed last year. And at some point, like during this season, he might just be like, yeah, man, I don't need this anymore. I've already broken my body enough playing for Detroit and through last year of playing for the Rams. Maybe he just doesn't need this halfway through. So, yeah, this team is falling apart. I would hammer the under. They're going to be right in that QB race to me for the top 2.
And the other thing is their schedule does them no favors. You get the AFC North, so you're getting 4 teams there that I think people are fairly excited about to varying degrees. Bengals, Browns, Ravens, even the Steelers are a little bit exciting. And you get the NFC East, which saw 3 teams make it to the playoffs last year. You're also getting the Packers in there. Like, that's when you get out of the West, when you get the 2 games against the Niners and the Seahawks, you get those teams to play. 6.5 seems like a big reach for me.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their schedule before the bye, right now, like outside of their division games, they play Cincinnati on the road. They're on the road in Indianapolis. They're at home against Philly. They're at home against Pittsburgh. Then they go to Dallas and to Green Bay. That's not a great schedule for a team that is starting a bunch of rookies and an offensive line that is highly suspect. Like this might bottom out real quickly.
That week 3 game for the Rams, JP, is on Monday Night Football. That is going to stink. That is the Rams visiting the probably potentially Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals. So we'll get like 4 hours of Zach Taylor, Sean McVay fluff. And that will be all that there is to kind of go on that subject. I suppose that's a good segue, which is how bad will the Bengals start of the season be without Joe Burrow? I guess, like, what's the point of demarcation? Like, what is the point of panic if Joe Burrow misses? So their first few games, let's just kind of live in the first 4 weeks, at Cleveland, Baltimore, the aforementioned Rams game, and at Tennessee. And let's throw week 5 in there at Arizona. Let's presume Joe Burrow's not there, Mark. How many of these games can the Bengals win? At Cleveland, Baltimore. So, and you start off 0-2. We hear all the things. I know it's different now with the 17th game, like the probabilities and stuff. But those are 2 divisional losses potentially, 1 at home. So at Cleveland, Baltimore, the Rams, at Titans, and at Arizona. What's the Bengals' record without Joe Burrow?
I think they can still win 3 games there. I mean, the first 2, you could, like you said, you probably start 0-2 if you don't have Burrow, like Cleveland, Baltimore. That's going to be tough. I think you can still run. Well, look, we just talked about the Rams and their struggles. Tennessee will be interesting. I know there's some, growing excitement about what might happen in Tennessee this year. Maybe with Hopkins back, you see a rejuvenated Ryan Tannehill. I have to see that before I really buy in. And we expect Arizona to be in that QB mix as well. So I think there's 3 games that they could win. Now, I think what's interesting, Jamar Chase spoke last week about how he told Joe, like, look, I don't need to see you week 1. Like, we need you for the long run. Like, make sure you're good. calf strain. I don't know. It's not like a high ankle sprain. It wasn't a knee thing. So I know there's concern that he might not be back right away. Maybe he's back sooner than we expect. But if he is out those first 5, I think they could still win 3 of those games.
JB.
Yeah, I mean, I expect them to win 3 of those games. Tennessee might get real weird because Tennessee is going to play hard, and they have a great defense, and they're always going to play teams tough because of that defense, because of Mike Vrabel. But starting 0-2 in a division that's going to be considerably better is not a great start for the Bengals. I think, especially with Cleveland looking a whole lot better potentially, the Ravens potentially looking really, really good. Starting 0-2 in the AFC North is going to be a problem for the Bengals in the long haul. So I think, yeah, they're going to win 3 of those games. I would really start to panic. I would only really start to panic if they win like maybe 1 of them. Like if they just bottom out through those first 5 weeks without Joe Burrow. That's when I'd start to hit the panic button. But even then, if you can just get to – if you can even get to the bye week, because their bye week is week 7.
Yeah, it's an early bye.
If we include the Seattle game, if you can just get to the bye week through week 6, if you can get to the bye week 3-3,
500,
4-2 without Joe Burrow, then you're in a great spot.
Well, you come out of that bye if you're the Bengals at San Francisco, Buffalo, Houston if they're plucky, at Baltimore, Pittsburgh. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so you're right. Like, you almost kind of have to look at that. Like, we got to get there. Even if we're 2-4, you know,
make sure he's ready to go after that bye.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you need him absolutely 100% for that next 1, 2, 3, like those next 6 weeks. You need him 100% because you're not going to win those games. I mean, outside of Houston without Joe Burrow 100%.
I don't know about that. I mean, you know, Houston has an inside training camp live presence on NFL Network. Like they've grown in stature. All right. You know what I mean? Like people actually are paying attention to them this year, which is significant. JP, why don't you spin the wheel? What question has your fancy?
All right. I'm going to go with a division that's kind of intriguing to me, but for all the wrong reasons. What if the Saints are kind of good this year? I've been thinking a lot about this NFC South, and like, you could really make a case to me for any of these teams winning the division. But what if the Saints are kind of good? They're not going to have Alvin Kamara for the first 3 games of the season, but you know, bringing in Derek Carr, you're thinking that, you know, they'll at least have okay quarterback play outside of what happened last year. Chris Olave is fantastic, and you still keep some of the bones around of that defense that still could be very good. So what if the Saints are kind of good?
Yeah, this division fascinates me. I mean, JP, you and I and Ricky and James, we're talking about how this is the most chaotic division in all of the NFL this season, I think. You know, because you're looking at obviously the Saints, Derek Carr, you're expecting to get at least steady, competent quarterback play. But then you look, Atlanta is fascinating because they have all these weapons, but we've got the Desmond Ridder factor, and it's becoming a meme on social media that every training camp clip doesn't show who's throwing the ball, and every pass is off target. And it just looks like that quarterback situation could be, let's just say, a bit unsettled. When you hear that Logan Woodside is the best QB in camp right now for Atlanta, you haven't heard that phrase since he was at Toledo, when he was the best quarterback in camp for the Toledo Mudhens. And so that's going to be a big question. You know, you shift to the fascinating quarterback battle between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. Like that's just, you know, sell some pay-per-view for that because we need to see that. And then Carolina, I think, is going to be intriguing. Obviously, they just added Justin Houston. It seems like they feel pretty confident about their chances. But again, you're getting a rookie quarterback there. So there's pure chaos in this division. So you look at New Orleans almost by default, given they've got at least somebody that's more of a known quantity at the quarterback position, they should have the edge. But what if Bryce Young really figures it out? What if Desmond Ridder has been fooling us all along and he suddenly starts throwing darts and they unlock, you know, Kyle Pitts and Drake London is great. And with Bijan Robinson there, spreading him out and using him in the vertical passing game. What if they're suddenly good? What if Baker Mayfield's massive chip on his shoulder actually pays off for him? It's a absolutely chaotic division. I think the Saints have the best shot right now. But yeah, you tell me come November that one of these teams is in the lead and it's not New Orleans. Could be any of them.
Do you both or either of you recall that last year Peter King, in his like final Football Morning America before the regular season started, predicted the Saints to be the 1 seed in the NFC? Do either of you remember
that?
Yeah, that was a little bit startling. So what I'm going to say is kind of along those lines. There's generally like a team that gets, you know, lasts a little bit, you know, longer than we would have anticipated undefeated. The 2021 Arizona Cardinals come to mind. In that sense, So this is New Orleans' schedule. Tennessee, certainly a winnable game. At Carolina, which is on Monday Night Football. At Green Bay, we have no idea what the Jordan Love experience will be like. Tampa Bay, at New England, sorry, Mark. At Houston, Jacksonville, at Indianapolis, Chicago, at Minnesota before their Week 11 bye. Like, it's not inconceivable to me that they could reach 6, 7, 8-0, and then we're sitting here kind of like, how did this happen? Like, that is well within the realm of possibility in my mind.
Yeah, I think looking at the Saints this year, one thing they're going to have is they're going to have a defense that's still going to be pretty good. You know, Cam Jordan's still around for the long haul. Demario Davis has kind of quickly become like underrated in terms of NFL circles. He's still a very fantastic middle linebacker. Marshawn Lattimore is still very good. I like their young guys at DB, Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor. Chris Olave is a star in the making. I just worry about what we're going to get from Derek Carr, because we know what we're going to get from Derek Carr. We're going to get at least okay quarterback play. But how do you have to just be okay in this division? Can you just be okay in this division? I think it's still kind of, you got to wait and see, because everything else is still relatively unknown. But I mean, with the Bucs, Kyle Trask is looking like QB1 there, which doesn't look like a good sign. The Panthers, I personally think the Panthers are I want the Panthers to win the division. I think they have the tools necessary to win. I still worry about kind of their receiving weapons, but I like what they're doing on defense. I like Frank Reich with Bryce Young. The Falcons, we've talked about the Falcons offense ad nauseum, about them hiding a quarterback, like Pusha T accused Drake of hiding a child. Also, that defense might not be that great. You're still looking for a corner opposite of AJ Terrell. Jeff Okuda went down with an injury. I don't know how serious it is, but they're talking about it's kind of serious. So you're back to the drawing board on that one. But the Saints should, like, with that schedule, they should be in contention for the division lead in the NFC South. They have enough talent to win that division. It's just, one, how good can Derek Carr elevate? How much can Derek Carr elevate that offense? And are we going to finally see a healthy Michael Thomas? Like, that's a very, very big part of this puzzle, especially with Alvin Kamara missing the first 3 games of the season.
Something I like to do, obviously this is about more than this, but you bring up Derek Carr. I love to look at the Cowboys schedule by opposing quarterback. And obviously kind of like, how often do they have the quarterback advantage? Just again, kind of along these lines. So Derek Carr versus Ryan Tannehill. We give the edge to Derek Carr. Derek Carr versus Bryce Young in 2023, week 2, right? We're giving the edge to Derek Carr. Derek Carr against Jordan Love. We're giving the edge to Derek Carr. Derek Carr, Kyle Trask, I suppose. Derek Carr, Mac Jones, maybe. I mean, possibly, potentially. Like, you never know. Derek Carr, CJ Stroud. You know what I mean? Like, again, you're talking about the first 6 weeks of the season, the Saints have the better quarterback on the field. Like, it'll be interesting. Especially once Alvin Kamara gets back, et cetera, et cetera. Mark, take us in the direction that your heart feels the most strongly.
I still can't figure out this team. I'm very curious about the Vikings. Have we written them off too soon? Or is it this is the time to write them off? What has happened in Minnesota? Do we like Kirk Cousins now because of the quarterback series? Because I've watched it and I kind of feel like I like him a little bit more. He just seems kind of like an everyday dad. And maybe that's, the dad side of me that's like, oh, he just seems like he wants to sit by the fire and think deep thoughts about life while the family's in bed. I get it. How do we feel about the Vikings right now?
I think the offense is going to be fine still. I think they're still going through a little bit of questions along the interior offensive line. Yeah. Their tackles are phenomenal. Christian Darrisaw very quietly had a great last season. We all know about Justin Jefferson. I think Jordan Addison is going to kill it next to Justin Jefferson as a wide receiver too. One thing that I kind of appreciate about Kirk Cousins, watching him again last year and going back and watching film on him, is he is tough as hell, man. He is going to stand in there and make throws. That's something that I think Kevin O'Connell's brought out of him. The aggression, throwing the ball downfield, and the toughness to kind of stand in against pressure. Because there were games where he's just getting folded and he's getting right back up. It's something they talked about in the quarterback series. But that defense looks really, really bad on paper. You are still looking at Mekhi Blackmon, who was a 3rd-round rookie. He's probably going to start at outside corner. You have a lot of holes out on the secondary, and not only that, you're bringing in Brian Flores, who is a completely different philosophical coordinator than the old defensive coordinator who got fired because he wouldn't blitz enough and that defense was really bad. So that philosophical scheme change is going to hurt them through the first few weeks of the season. But I also just wonder, is this defense good enough for them to actually contend this year? I don't think it is. So I'm still on I don't think they're going to be good this year, but they're going to be feisty because that offense is still going to be fine.
I do think it's a little bit too vogue to hate on the Vikings. I thought that all season long. Now, to be very clear, in the interest of full disclosure, even though I know you both listened to every Monday Football Monday last year,
every single one.
Yeah, I know. I picked the Vikings to win the NFC, and so like I felt pretty solid all season long. I picked Kirk Cousins to win MVP, and my thought process was Justin Jefferson's going to light the world on fire. He won Offensive Player of the Year, so I felt justified in that. And generally speaking, MVP is a quarterback, sort of award. Kirk would get the kind of bump and benefit from that. You also kind of like, there tends to be like MVP fatigue. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes defied that, like he does everything else, but et cetera, et cetera. So I believe in the Vikings a little bit more than most people. They currently, according to our friends at DraftKings, have the 7th longest odds to win the NFC. Again, I think that's just a little bit disrespectful. And if we look at the odds to win the NFC North specifically, the Lions currently at plus 140, the Vikings at plus 275. So like to answer the question, like the disparity there is not justified to me. Like, I mean, like I understand that like all the one possession wins and all the things and the point differential and all the memes that we heard and saw last year, but like this is still, I mean, like Kevin O'Connell got no love, and Kirk even brought it up in the show, Mark. Like Kevin O'Connell wasn't even on the ballot for Coach of the Year last year. Like we freaked out because Brian Daboll took the Giants to and I understand that Kevin O'Connell's Vikings lost to them, but like they have a very solid and aggressive head coach. They have arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. They have a very capable quarterback. They have a defense that is seemingly going to be improved just by the like matter of regression to the mean. Like again, I think we have gone too far with the criticism of who they were in 2022.
Yeah, I think part of that, though, is the excitement over the Detroit Lions, which is something I'm certainly guilty of. I mean, last year, going into the season, I thought, hey, when we get to the holiday season and you're seeing, the playoff picture graphics before every game on Fox and on CBS, you'll see Detroit Lions in the hunt at the bottom, and that'll be a great year for them. And they were in it until the very end. And I think they've had a very intriguing offseason. I know people look at, you drafted a linebacker, a tight end, a running back. Like, is this 1985? But I think it fits with what they want to be, just, philosophically as well as schematically. There's a lot of love for the Detroit Lions right now. And I think an offshoot of that is people are looking at the Vikings and saying, well, that defense, as JP pointed out, is going to have a lot of question marks. They're going through a big philosophical change. Kirk Cousins, yes, he's nice. He's endearing. I think O'Connell did a great job turning him into more of an artist than a robot, which I think is a great way of looking at the quarterback position. I once sort of said that, Baker versus Chef, right? Chefs can be a bit more creative. Bakers are just by the numbers following the recipe. That's where Cousins was. They're trying to get him to be more creative. And I think that's done a good job of sort of getting more out of him. But there are still a lot of questions and a lot of love for the Lions. And as a result, I think that's the reason we're seeing these kinds of odds going into the year.
He's like Marcus the baker in the show Chef, or Bear, I guess, but about the chefs.
Which we watched the second to last episode of season 2 last night. Oh my God, that is such a great show.
So you haven't finished it?
No, we just got the finale from season 2 last.
Okay, but the Christmas episode, holy crap!
That is holiday canon right now. Okay, like every holiday season, it's the Charlie Brown Christmas special. It's going to be the Ted Lasso Christmas episode, and then that one. And as I told everybody over at .com, like that brought back some memories growing up in an Italian family. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, enjoy the finale. That's all I'll say for you, Mark. No spoilers.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
JP, any final thoughts on the Vikings or I guess season 2 of the Bear?
The Vikings are just a very, very weird team to me. I don't have a lot of faith in this defense, at least not right now, with the upheaval they have at the cornerback spot, which, of course, like you're playing in the NFC North, which might not be the biggest problem of not having corners. But if you look at the schedule, they're playing Tampa Bay at home. Then they go to Philly. Then they have the Chargers, then Carolina on the road, then Kansas City. They play Chicago twice before the bye. They play Green Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans, Denver. I mean, it's winnable, but it's also like with this Vikings team, you never know. And with all the one-score wins they had last year, you're kind of thinking like, hey, you're not going to win all those one-score games last year. Like something has to give. They were one of the highest variance teams, according to Football Outsiders last year. I just don't know. I don't think this team is going to be good, but I think they're going to be I think the whole aspect of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah saying competitive rebuild, they are going to be a competitive rebuilding team. They're not going to be bad enough to be in the quarterback draw, which might hurt them in the long run, but they're not going to be good enough to be like, oh, we're Super Bowl contenders and we're picking in like the late 20s.
Bring it up one last point here. Do we think Trey Lance ends up in Minnesota? I keep coming back to this idea.
I mean, like this year, is that what you're saying?
Like as a trade for the future. Because like JP said, like they're probably not going to be in a position to take a Caleb Williams or Drake May. Like there will inevitably be some sort of quarterback riser, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., like somebody like that you might be able to get, say, mid-first round, late first round, if that's where they end up in the draft. Do they take a flyer on a Trey Lance trade? Because it looks like Purdy's going to be the guy. Sam Darnold will be number 2, whatever. That's what Kyle Shanahan's going to want to do. Is that where he ends up? Does he become sort of Kevin O'Connell's next project?
I mean,
with the way it's looking right now, I just think if Trey Lance is QB3, then we have some serious issues. But yeah, if it comes down to it, then yeah, he'll probably end up on the Vikings by next year, because Kirk Cousins is in the last year of that contract with the Vikings. I think this will probably be the last year of the Vikings Kirk Cousins era. So they got to figure something out, or else you're going to be riding that quarterback purgatory wheel during the prime of Justin Jefferson's career, which you don't really want to do. So it's probably interest to do that.
Presuming there is no Justin Jefferson deal in place by then. Like maybe Justin Jefferson gets fed up, like I want out, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if we're really living in all, hypotheticals, but there's no pen on that paper, or no ink on that paper, I guess. But I mean, I guess to answer the question, but not answer it, Mark, I am more confident that Cousins is the next 49ers quarterback than I am. Like, I think that maybe that union finally happens. Like given especially what JP just outlined with Cousins is in the trajectory in Minnesota this year. I guess we might as well knock this one out. One of the other questions we had was, who is the 49ers quarterback? Obviously Trey Lance isn't in the mix for that. But do we believe in Purdy? Are we buying the Sam Darnold thing? Like, does it matter? I mean, like JP, I know you brought this up recently on Monday Football Monday, but we're several weeks into training camp, and I feel like I don't have any more like level of knowledge or peace in an answer than I did at that point in time.
Don't gaslight me into thinking that Sam Darnold's going to be a thing. Please do not do that to me this year. I will not allow for Kyle Shanahan to hit me with the Sam Darnold play action. Don't talk me into him being a real thing. He's not good. Do not do that to me. Of course, he's going to end up like playing against the Cardinals because everybody gets hurt and he throws for like 400 yards, and people are just going to come back to this, be like, oh, Sam Darnold might be good. But no, we're not doing this. I just think the way that they've handled this situation has been very, very weird. And like, it's also been kind of dumb to me because, and it also kind of ties into the whole Kirk Cousins Niners thing, which like, I understand, but I also think Kyle Shanahan wants to be done with having quarterbacks that you have to control and user like you're playing Madden, I think with drafting Trey Lance and with his thoughts, I remember in like 2020 when they played the Bills and Josh Allen destroyed the Niners. He was like, yeah, we need to get a quarterback like that. So he went out and got Trey Lance. It would be kind of revisionist. It'd be kind of dumb to go back and be like, hey, instead of trying to get a guy who can do all this stuff, let's go get Kirk Cousins, who's going to be 36, 37 years old and can't do all that stuff instead of Trey Lance. I understand the kind of the holdup with Trey Lance is he just doesn't have a lot of reps. But my entire thought process was during this quarterback battle, Trey Lance should win because he is the better quarterback. He is a more physically talented quarterback. If he wins, that's why he won the job. And we also really haven't seen him with Christian McCaffrey in that offense. If he doesn't win, then yeah, we're going to have a little bit of issues. But with Brock Purdy, you just know that you have a guy that you don't have to you have a guy who can run that offense. You have a guy who can at least find the open man. You're not stuck with Josh Johnson in the NFC Championship game. Respect to Josh Johnson. But it's just so weird how this entire quarterback battle has kind of played out and how quiet it's been, because you normally don't hear that. You normally don't have this kind of silence around a quarterback competition that is important as a one on a Niners team where this could make or break their season. If you pick the right guy, they are a Super Bowl favorite. But if it doesn't work out, you're in the same spot as you were for the past 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've almost built an offense personnel wise that's like QB agnostic, and we've seen this. We saw it. They were able to have success with Jimmy Garoppolo. They were able to have success in limited, starts with Trey Lance, and they certainly had success with Brock Purdy until he went down. And I think that given what they've built, the idea is probably okay. At one point, we wanted a guy like Trey Lance. We wanted our own version of Josh Allen. But with McCaffrey now in the fold and what we've got, we don't need that just yet. And so we can ride with Brock Purdy. We can sort of just keep it as it goes, let him get touchdown, check down looks, and we'll be fine. And that will probably be enough in the NFC West. I don't know. I kind of like Seattle, but that might be enough in the West. That might be enough to make a deep run in the NFC. And then who knows? I think that's kind of their approach right now. As much as I loved Trey Lance going to the Niners, I thought it was the perfect fit. I thought he was going to unlock portions of Shanahan's playbook that he didn't have with a more athletic, mobile quarterback. Now suddenly those boot action designs are a little bit different when you're that curl flat defender and you got Trey Lance rolling your way and you've got two receivers deeper than you. Now you might have to come downhill and tackle him. Like it's a lot different him running that offense as opposed to Purdy or Garoppolo, but it just hasn't worked. So that gives them, maybe it's revisionist history of some sense, but Purdy gives them an option that runs their offense, keeps them on schedule, and that's what they want right
now. Maybe I'm just like scarred. Given my team has had their season end at the hands of this team, like regardless of who the quarterback has been, in each of the last 2 years. But like, and I don't say this in like a rude or negligent way, but like I almost don't care like who their like this. It's really hard for me to like develop a passionate take on this because like it really doesn't matter. That's kind of like where I've landed on.
Yeah, and that might get to why there's not like national buzz about this battle.
Right.
Like you go on the 49ers Twitter and it's open warfare over there. I mean, you've got your Purdy stands, you got your Lance stands, you got like one or two Sam Darnold people. Maybe those are burners. I don't know, but they're certainly fighting about it. It's just on a national level. It's like whether it's Purdy, whether it's Lance, whether it's Darnold, it's like that offense is probably going to be pretty good given Debo, given Kittle, given McCaffrey, given what they have around the quarterback position. It's going to be good regardless of who's taking the snaps.
But I do think that the quarterback spot does matter because we've seen this Niners team fall apart in the biggest moments where the quarterback has been important. We saw Jimmy G completely fall apart in a Super Bowl and in the NFC Championship game against the Rams. I understand how much.
Did he fall apart in the title game against the Rams, or did Jaquiski Tartt drop an interception?
He did kind of fall. He did kind of.
I don't. And I mean, he made the throw in the Super Bowl. I mean, to a degree, right? Like, I mean, like I'm saying, like, I wouldn't give him an F grade for those two performances. That's all.
Sure, but when you're going up against a Matt Stafford who at that time was playing like the best quarterback in the league, and Patrick Mahomes, you cannot have a guy who you have to consistently create these massive, wide opening margins for errors. I just think Kyle Shanahan, who he has shown he can do that, but I don't know if he wants to consistently do that. You don't want to consistently try and create open windows for every quarterback. Like massive wide open windows for every quarterback. I think that's why Sean McVay went out and got Matt Stafford. You want a guy who you don't have to NPC like Madden generate control. That's why you go get Trey Lance. And I still believe in Trey Lance. I think he will elevate the offense in a way that I don't think Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold can. But it's just a very, very odd situation with what's going on in San Francisco, just by the sheer silence coming from him.
There's a sick level of like masochism to Kyle Shanahan. It's almost like he has the really broken down like TV that's like, no, you just have to do this. Like you have to do all that. And somebody's like, dude, just get like the new one. You know what I mean? Like one button. He's like, no, I don't want it. But okay, it's kind of the last lame one. This was admittedly lame. I have no problem admitting that. But I wasn't here last week when you guys were. I definitely listened. Definitely in Mark's tone. Do we really believe in the feud brewing between the Jets and Broncos? Is this like a real thing? Like, I know we're always quick to be like, I love this. It's so cool. Reminds me of when we were younger. And like, I know WWE, whatever. I'm not a WWE person. Like, I don't have like a problem with it, but like, I'm not passionate about it. Like, are we really buying this? Are we really like, oh man, I can't wait till week 5. Like it was cool for 5 minutes, and then like I feel like the buzz around it kind of dissipated. I may be
Yeah.
alone.
I'll go
maybe
first.
negatives.
That's kind of where I am on it. Like it was cool for
Yeah.
the first like 5 minutes. Like it was cool when like Peyton like ran his mouth and the Jets fired back. And then like we talked about last week, get yourself a friend like Aaron Rodgers, man. Because if he's going ride or die for Nathaniel Hackett, like he'll go ride and die for everybody. So you need to get a friend like that. But it's kind of worn off. Like it's not like they're, divisional rivals. They'll play week 5. It'll be fun. I'm sure it'll be the national game of the week, but I'm kind of over it. I get a feeling though, JP is really excited about this.
I'm here for the negativity. I want this to be a thing. We need more haters in the NFL. Like we said last week, we need a villain. We need a rivalry to get invested in. And of course, the Jets and Broncos won't play in the same. They won't play twice every year. But this has been something you can constantly build up to. I do think it's very dumb that Nathaniel Hackett mentioned a coach code. It sounds very much like unwritten rules, which all of the unwritten rules absolutely suck. But it's just funny. I think it's great that there's this team who have beef with each other and they're going to play week 5. I think it's great that you can say all this stuff and then you have to actually go back it up. I think somebody needs to get hit across the head with a chair. I think that has to happen. I think Robert Saleh needs to take a folding chair and just straight up throw it at Sean Payton. Like as soon as like pregame, you need to just run up, wham, right across the head, ECW style. Just go straight. Just get straight to the negativity. We need to set the tone, and I think it's fun. I think it's great that this feud is kind of brewing because, like I said, we need like Tom Brady's out of the league. We need somebody who we can hate.
I think if I have to like boil down what feels awkward or misplaced to me is like, and I say this with no disrespect intended, like Robert Saleh feels like he's out of place to me. Like Sean Payton, Aaron Rodgers, you want to talk beef with one another? Fine, by all means. Like you've accomplished a lot in this league. Like I've got my feelings about both of you in different ways. But like you guys want to fight, let's go. 2 heavyweights to your point, JP. But like Robert Saleh is this like really unaccomplished, kind of piece in that mix. And he's also really cheesy. Like I hate the all gas, no break stuff. Like, and it's going to that's going to be beat over our heads with a chair, every Tuesday for the next 5 weeks. Like, so I just like, I can't get invested in the Robert Saleh element of this. And he was a big part of it all. See,
I think of it the other way. I'm not too invested in Aaron Rodgers saying, keep my coach's name out your mouth, because what are you going to do? What is Aaron Rodgers?
What is anyone going to do? Oh, I'm going to make sure we win the game. Oh no, please no, please God no. Oh no.
Again, somebody's got to get hit with a chair. Somebody's got to start a fight.
I hope it lives up to the hype. Like I really hope that I remember, like in 2014, like when the Cowboys went to Philly, like Des Bryant was like jawing with like Nolan Carroll before the game. Like that was awesome. Like, so if it's like that, JP, or like when the Saints actually went to Seattle for that 2013 divisional game and it was like super windy, like there was a lot of trash talk in there. If it lives up to that hype, by all means, but like these things generally fizzle out, which I think is why Mark and I feel the way that we do.
I think it might fizzle out mainly just because it involves the quarterback, and quarterbacks are fight averse. That's the way I'll put it. I'm not going to say they can't fight, because maybe some quarterbacks can fight. Aaron Rodgers specifically cannot fight, but he could just be like conflict averse, which I don't know how much of that is true based on how Aaron Rodgers has done.
He doesn't seem conflict averse. I think physical confrontation averse, but not conflict averse.
He is fight averse. So I don't know if he will be willing to take the fight to Sean Payton. Sean Payton fights dirty though. Sean Payton is absolutely going to shake Robert Saleh's hand, and he's got the little shocker thing on his hand.
Buzzer. Yeah.
And they'll give him a little jolt. Maybe he'll like put a sign on Nate Hackett's back when he's going up to the press box to call plays that says "kick me" or something.
Yeah.
It's like a whoopee cushion. Yeah.
Yeah, like a little pin cushion.
Yeah, because that game's in Denver. I mean, he'll have home field advantage there.
I also thought the idea that people were like, this doesn't bother me the way you're both going to think of this, but the people were like, oh, put this game on Sunday Night Football. The Cowboys visited the 49ers that week on Sunday Night Football. So first of all, like never happening. But the reason it bothers me is like, no, like if you want more people to watch this, like to Mark's point, leave it in the afternoon. Like you want the biggest stage possible, put it in the afternoon on CBS. Like that's when everyone wants to watch it.
It's already in that afternoon time slot to begin with. I don't think they're going to give it up. I mean, I think CBS is going to be like, no. We want this game because we can get an entire week's worth of Rodgers, Peyton, Saleh, fighting over Nathaniel Hackett beef going. Like, which again, they're fighting over Nathaniel Hackett.
The funniest part of this is that they're fighting over a guy who had the worst offense in the NFL last year. Like, they were legitimately last in points per game. They had so many penalties before the snap. It's just, you are defending a guy who objectively was not good at his job. He still might not be good at his job because they're putting him up in the press box to call plays instead of having him down on the field next to his best friend. And
they're going through a middleman. Like, Todd Dowden is going to then relay the plays into Rodgers. It makes me wonder, like, is he going to have like veto power? Like, if Hackett calls down a play and it's like, no, it's just bad and they don't want to run it, he's going to just change it. Like, that just all seems weird to me. And Salah's saying, no, a lot of teams do it this way. Really? It's just
CJP, like, nah, this is all dumb. Like, every step that both these organizations have taken is also so like annoying that like it's difficult to be like, oh, this is cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know.
I think it's perfect because at this point, like week 5, we could be headed towards a train wreck for both teams. Like the Jets, like looking at the Jets schedule. It's real
I'm
tough.
with you. If one of them can deliver the kill shot to the other, I would find that entertaining. You know what I mean? Like like knock one of them to 1-4. Like that would be awesome. But like,
the Jets leave Denver 1-4, man. We're gonna have content for days after that.
Man, that Jet schedule is very unforgiving. Like,
okay, so we have 3 left, but we're gonna put 2 of these together. If I mean these make sense together. So I'd like you both to answer them at the same time. Who is the team with obvious regression hiding in plain sight, and who is the team with obvious growth hiding in plain sight? So this would hopefully be a little bit unique. Like, you know, nobody wants to be like, oh, the Vikings are going to regress. Like, again, we want a little bit more unique thinking here on the new and improved Monday Football Monday. So obvious contender that no one's like in November, we're going to be like, that was really obvious. Like, we didn't really pay that much attention to them. An obvious regression candidate. They were like, yeah, we should have really seen that coming. We gassed them up for no reason. I don't know if either one of you is feeling particularly bold. If you would like me to buy you some time and go first, because I am prepared.
Go for it.
You go first.
Okay. I have done my fair share of hating on this team. Rachel knows because she does listen to every episode because she's wonderful. The obvious regression candidate to me, the Buffalo Bills. Like, and nobody wants to admit it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to say it. The Bills are the darling and smashing tables. That's all people want to talk about with the Bills. They have arrived in terms of being spoken about for the first time in a quarter century. So congratulations to the Mafia in that sense. It is going to be like they'll be like 3-4, and people will be like, "What happened? What's going on?" I don't know. They didn't add any explosive playmakers. They were down. They had Stephon Diggs, and they drafted Dalton Kincaid. They thought that would solve everything. So the Bills, to me, and look, people like freak out when a head coach takes over play calling duties, and obviously I'm sensitive to that. Oh, Mike McCarthy's taking over the offense. What's going on? Sean McDermott took over the defensive play calling, and nobody really cares. Like, nobody's like panicked about the Bills defense in that respect. So the Bills, the obvious regression candidate to me. That nobody wants to talk about. I'm going to be a little bit more bold on the other side of the spectrum, the positive side. The Packers. I do think we have like completely written them off. I'm not willing to like fully believe in Matt LaFleur, but I think that there are enough things happening that I could see them being competitive. I could see them being like the 7th seed. And in that respect, you are a contender. Right? If you're a playoff team, you're a contender by the very definition of the word. So I think the Packers people are so quick to write off because Aaron Rodgers, blah, 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 blah. So those are my 2 answers, and I'll fight anybody who disagrees with them. Chair style.
Okay, so my team with obvious regression is the team we talked about. I'm going to go with the Chargers. I still have a lot of questions about what Kellen Moore is going to bring for this offense. I have a lot of questions about how explosive the offense is going to be with that personnel. And then we haven't even talked about a defense who, last time I checked, is the worst run defense in the NFL, which is coming at a time when teams are starting to get more into heavier personnel and running the ball more. It's not great to have a team that gives up 6 yards a carry. They're also, I just worry about their depth, man. It's always going to be a thing with the Chargers that there's going to be one catastrophic injury, but I really do worry about that depth on the team. You're asking J.C. Jackson, who's coming off a torn, or it was either a torn patella or like a broken kneecap or something. You're asking him to come back and immediately juice back up that secondary. Asante Samuel Jr. right now is kind of without a position because Jasir Taylor has taken over in nickel. You're still a Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa injury away from potentially not being that great along the defensive line. And you're asking Eric Kendricks to make a massive change in that defense, who you kind of learned along the point of last season with the Chargers defense they ask their nickels and linebackers to do a lot in the run game. When you have a 200-pound nickel going up against a 300-pound guard pulling, I know who I'm going to take in that challenge. So you're asking Eric Kendricks to do a lot of covering up for that defense, especially in the middle. Kenneth Murray's still not that great. So I really do think they're not going to be as good as like general consensus. You know, we're all like, oh, this might be the Chargers year, but I don't know. But the team that I think is going to be a little better than people think are the Houston Texans. I don't know if they're not going to be like playoff contenders, but a lot of consensus after the draft was, oh, the Cardinals are going to have picks 1 and 2 in next year's NFL draft. And I just don't think that's going to be a thing because the Texans have a very, like, quietly a good roster. You know, if Bobby Slowick brings the San Francisco style of offense to Houston, I think that's an offense that fits what CJ Stroud can do really well. You know, he is an extreme pocket passer. He's a great processor to the second and third levels of the field. I really kind of like the receiving core. I like Nico Collins. John Mechie coming back healthy is going to do great for them. But that defense has potential to be really, really fun. Jalen Petre, safety, going to be a breakout guy this year. So is Derek Stingley, who amongst all the Sauce hype last year, Derek Stingley was good when he was healthy. And Will Anderson, from all early reports, is dominating camp, which you expect from a guy like Will Anderson, who I think is probably the shoe-in favorite to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I really do think that the Texans are going to be a lot better than people think. And they also have a really, really good tackle duo. Laramie Tunzel was borderline, if not, he was an all-pro last year. Titus Howard played very, very well last year. You're hoping to get some improvement along the interior with Shaq Mason coming over and Kenyon Green being in year 2 now. But I think the Texans are going to be good. They're not going to be playoff good, but they're going to be competitive good.
Just quickly, JP, happening right now as you were speaking, Titus Howard, head coach DeMeco Ryans announced Howard has a hand injury that is going to keep him out for a while, were Ryans' exact words.
Oh, great.
Kiss of death from JP Acosta. Literally scrolling my timeline as you're gassing him up. So well done.
Just impeccable timing. Could not thank DeMeco Ryans more.
Mark, your 2 picks, and also which ones of ours you agreed with or disagreed with the most?
I actually agree with all of them. I mean, I think those were all well reasoned, well argued, very well done. Both of you fine gentlemen. A regression candidate, I'm watching New York Giants. I know there have been some people that said, hey, you know, Giants could make a run. They could, you know, they're a year ahead of schedule and made the playoffs last year. I don't know. I want to see what year 2 Brian Daboll looks like. I want to see how defenses adjust to what they did schematically with Daniel Jones. What's that passing game really going to look like? I know there's a lot of excitement about Jalen Hyde. He looks fast, and that's great, and that's winning them some one-on-ones. Is that going to translate, you know, to actual NFL games? You know, when it's not just a one-on-one, what a defender doesn't have help, has no leverage or anything like that. What's the Saquon Barkley fallout going to be? Because I am wondered about that too. And they get a tougher schedule this year, obviously, than the schedule they had a year prior. They get the AFC East. You know, you're going to have some tough games along the road there. So I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about the Giants. You know, a team that I'm sort of excited about, you know, a team that I think might make a little bit better run. And this is another division that fascinates me. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin. I love Mike Tomlin. Big fan of him. I think, you know, JP talked about, you know, we're going to see a return to bigger personnel packages. I think they're going to be at the forefront of that. I expect them to be heavy 12 personnel. A lot of Allen Robinson and George Pickens on the outside. A lot of Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington on the inside. Washington looks fantastic in camp. Kenny Pickett is catching everything. I mean, not Kenny Pickett. George Pickens is catching everything. Kenny Pickett, year 2 is going to be fun to watch. That defense is going to be great, particularly up front. I think Joey Porter having to go up against Pickens almost every single day in camp is going to make him much better once the season gets rolling. I don't know if they're going to have enough to win the division, but hey, let's say that Burrow's out for a while. Let's say that Deshaun still not quite getting acclimated to that offense under Kevin Stefanski. Maybe the Baltimore Ravens struggle a little bit. I'm very intrigued by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Did you see Kendrick Green taking snaps at fullback and like crushing it? That is my new dream for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Put Kendrick Green at fullback, throw him passes. They saw Pat Ricard just completely dominate the division.
Yeah. I think they're going to be fun, man.
Okay. Well, congratulations then to the Green Bay Packers, Houston Texans, and Pittsburgh Steelers. T's and P's for the Buffalo Bills, the LA Chargers, and the New York Giants. That was well done and well reasoned. Our final question, gentlemen, before Rachel hands out the coveted MF MVP, is Patrick Mahomes just like inevitable? Like, did we have are we doing all this for nothing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are we just wasting time? I mean, really?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, feels that way. I mean, look, we learned in the past month or so that there are aliens out there. Like, there was literally a congressional hearing that there are aliens, and they've been walking among us, and Patrick Mahomes is at the top of that list. He was sent here to amaze and wow us, and he's just inevitable at this point.
Yeah, he's like a scroll, right?
Yeah.
Craziest thing about Patrick Mahomes to me still is when he first had that first MVP season throwing 50 touchdowns, it was all touchdown or check down. It was very much a feast or famine, long, deep passing offense. They turned that into the most efficient offense we've ever seen underneath. And Patrick Mahomes just has become a buzzsaw in the short to intermediate areas of the field in 5 years. Not even 5 years. They instantly flipped that. Like, after the loss to the Bengals in the AFC title game, they flipped that in an instant. They traded Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes just got better. I think a lot of what is underrated about Patrick Mahomes is how quick of a processor he is, along with the arm strength, the ability to throw passes behind his back that are somehow accurate. I still think if he does that in a game, I'm going to throw something.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I don't know where I'm going to throw. I'm just going to throw something. But,
yeah. Chiefs games are games you watch when your phone is across the room, because just for that moment, just for that potential of him doing a behind the back pass, and you're just like, I can't believe this guy, and you chuck your foot.
What do you even say as a defensive coordinator if a quarterback throws a behind the back pass that actually works? Like, what do you tell your defense? You'd be like, yeah, man, that's tough.
I'm reminded of that great Pedro Martinez quote when he got lit up by the Yankees in Yankee Stadium and they were chanting, "Who's your daddy?" He's like, I just tip my hat and call my daddy. Like, that's all you could do at that point.
Right.
You can't scheme for that. And I truly think the offense taking such a shift, in their ability to go from deep ball or no ball to an efficient buzzsaw of an offense ties to Patrick Mahomes doing that same thing. Like, he is the most efficient quarterback we've seen, and we've probably seen the NFL. Like, we talk about Drew Brees being an elite processor and passer in the short to intermediate area of the field. Patrick Mahomes is doing that while also being able to do all the creative stuff outside the pocket. And he can still throw the ball a mile. It's just, as long as he is healthy and upright, they are the Super Bowl favorites. It does not matter what happens.
I don't have anything to add to this. My only takeaway on Patrick Mahomes, in terms of things I think that I didn't, I guess maybe 6 weeks ago, is a result of watching quarterback. I had never really gotten an up close look at his logo. It's hard to make P and M work. I'll just say that it's the difficult letters. I thought that about Jordan Spieth, the PGA Tour player. His logo is kind of awkward. P and M are really difficult. Some letters just work great. Like Tracy McGrady's logo is one of my all-time favorites. Some just work very well together. P and M are very, very difficult. So kudos to Adidas for giving it their best shot, but it's not for me. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Okay. Rachel, if you could please join us and let us know any thought that you have, any questions that you have, any answers that you have, really any musings that you may have, things you liked that you found a black hat. Very well done. Awesome. Nice. And so now I'm alone. Ironically, the black sheep, amongst the black hats. But who won MVP and why, please?
Yes. Today was such a fun show. You guys definitely killed it. I'm not surprised because you guys are all amazing. I just wanted to touch on some of the points. I love JP's. I think you had the strongest regression and growth candidates with the Texans and the Chargers out of everybody. So shout out to you for that. I think you did a really, really good job with that one. Mark, I think that you crushed it today. I definitely agree with your point. When you were talking about how, in addition to the Rams defense, just being young and their offensive line, how their schedule does them no favor. I think that that's really, really valid. Also, how you can see the Bengals winning 3 of their first 5 games. The Saints having the shot to be the best team in the NFC South. And then I also really like your point about Purdy and how he gives the 49ers like just the option to pretty much stay on track, like timeline. And so today it's already on RJ's face. I can definitely see it, but I gotta give it to Mark. I think that you crushed it today.
Thank you. It is a prestigious honor. I am updating my LinkedIn page as we speak with this tremendous accomplishment. But look, these shows are going to be a blast. I'm just happy to be a part. So that's my quick and short speech.
Congratulations, Mark, obviously, and congratulations, JP, because the two of you at least had things that Rachel liked. I didn't hear anything that Rachel liked that I had to say. You know, you both got like these glowing like bullet point reviews in terms of like, oh, this, you know, this was a great thing you said. You know, it's cool. I didn't get the black hat.
You had
so
I
mean, it's really what this is
about.
Yeah. Wow. JP, do you have anything to add? Do you want to congratulate Mark
yes,
properly?
I want to congratulate Mark. He's definitely coming in looking for a three-peat, but of course, Mark stole the show today. So I'm happy for Mark. I'm happy we get to do this every week. But I have
JP's speech recorded from last week. I have to share that. It was a tremendously warm moment, touching moment.
I am going to be coming for the 3-time MVP spot next week. I'm glad to be on. I'm glad we're having fun with this. So I think it's going to be awesome.
Mark, as we close, before we started, you talked about your bookshelf, and we had some like talk about how it's like a hidden cellar thing, kind of like a spy movie. So close us out with, what is your favorite spy movie and why?
Ooh, favorite spy movie. That's really tough. I'm a big fan of the Bourne series. I know it's not technically, he's more assassin than spy, but I'm a big fan of the Bourne series. Yeah, I'm going to go there. I love Matt Damon in that role. I thought he did a fantastic job in it. I'm a big fan of Bourne, so that's where I'm going.
Jesus Christ, Patrick Mahomes is Jason Bourne to kind of land the plane. Well done. Okay, let's get out of here. JP, sing us a song.
Oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, you don't have to do this.